Morning, welcome to this session about study methods and effective note-making. My name is Lisa Daisel. I'm a Senior Student Counsellor at the Unisa Directorate Counselling and Career Development. And we are here this morning to talk to you about effective study methods as well as ways for you to do notes that work quite well within the Unisa context. I would want to welcome all of you who made the time to join us this morning. In your Teams, you will see that there is an icon that you can click on called questions, and you are welcome to post your questions there throughout the session. We will make time at the end of the presentations to address the questions that you are asking. We are also recording this session, so it will be available on our YouTube channel, possibly by tomorrow or by the latest on Friday. So if you are not able to stay for the full session, please go to our YouTube channel. The link was posted there in the questions, where you will be able to go and view this session as well as other sessions that we previously presented. So starting this morning with study methods. The study method is a step-by-step process that you follow each time you study. So it's kind of like a recipe that you use to make your learning more effective. And each time you repeat this process, your study method, this will get easier since your brain learns and you get used to how you want to study. A good study method trains the brain to absorb, to store, and also to access information. So by using an effective study method, it will really help you to memorize the content that you need to know, to understand what you are busy studying, and then also to access this information for your assessments and examinations. So there are many different study methods, but they all use common techniques. So a study method will help you to divide your time between reading your books and your study material. So that would be the first part. It will also help you to make notes, to revise your work, to memorize your work, and also to test yourself. So those are the different ingredients of a study method. We will be talking a bit more about the EFT method. So in this method, you've got exploration, which is the E, and this part takes up about 70% of your time. So during the exploration phase, you are reading your study material. This could include your study guides. If there are prescribed textbooks, there may be additional resources that you are also using. And while you are doing this reading, you are also making notes. In the exploration phase, you will also revise what you are busy studying, and you will also memorize. Then in the second part, you will do fixation, so that's 20% of your time, and that is when you evaluate what you have been studying. And then the T part is testing, and that will take up about 10% of your time, and that is when you start doing intensive revisions, specifically with the aim of then doing your assessments. So stage 1, exploration. First part is to read your material and make notes. Arnold will be sharing a lot of tips with you in terms of making notes, but in short, making notes helps you to summarize the material you've read, and it helps you to integrate and to organize all the information that you need to work through. So simply reading your material is not enough. The notes are there to help you record the time that you've spent on a particular section, and it helps you to link what you are busy studying, what you are reading, doing the assignments, memorizing the content, and also writing exams. So making notes is the best way to understand and recall information. And as I've mentioned, during this stage, you will spend about 70% of your time reading the material and making notes. Then the stage 2 is where you fixate. So during this stage, you are revising. Revision helps you to fix the information in your brain, and this will take up about 20% of your time. Revision is one of the most powerful memory techniques that you can use. We recommend that you revise your work within 24 hours of studying it. You will have forgotten up to maybe 25% of the facts, but this is quite normal. Then you also need to revise your work again before continuing with memorizing new material. So for example, you will have a study session where you'll be reading through your study material and making notes. You will revise what you've done at the end of that study session, and before you start your next study session, you will then do another revision by using your notes. The revision process is where you bring all your knowledge together and you start fixing the content in your memory. And by the time you revise again, you should be familiar with the content. So this is a very important step that you need to take in order to fix the information or the content that you are busy reading about in your brain. Also during the FIXATE stage, you will be memorizing. So while you may understand the information you are studying, there will always be material that needs to be memorized. Excuse me. This is the last stage of studying and preparing for exams and can only be done effectively once you understand the material. This should take up about 15% of your time, and while you need to argue points of view, form opinions, and analyze text, you'll also need to memorize facts, ideas, and keywords. So memorizing is the second part of fixation, and by memorizing information, you develop reasoning skills based on a sound factual foundation. So just in short, some memory strategies that you can use, but keeping in mind that your first step is to understand the concepts and then to memorize the facts. So one of the ways that, or one of the memory strategies that one could use is called classification. So this is a process whereby you restructure and reorganize information on the same topic. An appropriate word which best defines or explains the information is used as a heading to summarize the information. And you can then further subdivide the content of your, for example, of a study unit. And in your notes, you will have tables, graphs, maps, etc., where you have already classified information. So making notes and making use of strategies such as tables, graphs, maps, pictures will help you to do the classification so that you can restructure and reorganize the information. Then another memory strategy is using acronyms. So basically the first letter of a list of facts that you have to remember, you then use those to create an acronym. So just as an example, if you would want to remember the order of the 9 planets, an acronym for that would be "My very elegant mom just served us 9 parrots." So that will help you to remember the order of the 9 planets, which is Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto. So the acronyms will help you to remember a list of facts that you need to know. Then we also have a memory strategy called a visualization technique. So imagery involves consciously creating visual images in your mind for the information that you would like to remember. You can use colorful, bizarre, humorous, and pleasant images to help you remember. For example, if we just think about something as simple as a shopping list, you need to buy bread, syrup, cornflakes, and eggs. So in terms of a visualization, you will visualize a piece of bread with a sizzling egg on top over which you have poured syrup and sprinkled cornflakes. So this is a very colorful and kind of bizarre image, which will help you to remember the items in your shopping list. So drawings in a mind map and the levels of the information that you've written in different colors perhaps will also then help you to memorize the information that you need to memorize, for example, for the exams. Then also during the FIXATE stage, you are evaluating. So you evaluating your performance against existing goals. And this will help you to set more realistic goals in the future, prepares you for exams, and gives you an idea of the volume of work required. So how you evaluate your progress is at the end of each study week, for example. as you are planning your work for the next week, you could ask yourself, did I commit to the time I wrote down and did I use my study time effectively? If not, what do I have to do differently this week to manage my study time more effectively? Another question would be, am I coping with the content or do I need help to understand it? And also, who must I ask for support? So for example, if you find that there is a part of the study material that you are just not understanding, do you need to join a group of students to have discussions? Do you need to contact an e-tutor if there's one allocated to you? Or do you need to contact your lecturer to have a discussion about the content? And then, of course, it's also important to evaluate your time commitments. So also thinking about the additional commitments that you need to schedule for the next week. So that is in stage 2, where you fixate the information. Then during stage 3, this is when you will do more intensive testing. So this is under the heading of revision again. So by the time that you get to this stage, you would have a lot of notes that you've made over the course of the semester or the year. So you can use your notes to test yourself. Other ways of testing or revising is to answer your old exam papers, if these are available on my Unisa, and to also use the study or the learning outcomes in your study guides to create your own questions. Discuss what you have learned with others, for example, your lecturer, your e-tutor, fellow students, a friend or family member, but it's important to understand that, as we are studying through distance learning, we often don't have enough conversations about what we are busy learning. So an important part of revising would also be to discuss what you have learned with others. And this stage would normally take about 10% of your time. So just a recap of what I've now shared with you. Exploration phase, about 70% of your time, where you are reading the material and you are making notes. You are continuously revising what you have learned and you are also memorizing. Then during the next phase, you are fixating, whereby you evaluate your progress, and then testing, which will take about 10% of your time, whereby you are doing revision. Thank you very much. That will then be the end of my presentation. I will then ask my colleague, Mr. Arnold de Tooy, to join us to share his presentation with us, and also to introduce himself to you. Okay, thank you, Arnold. We can see your presentation. As I've mentioned, this is Mr. Arnold de Tooy. He will now be sharing with you some hints and tips about effective note-making in the open and distance learning context.
Right, welcome everybody. You're already welcome, and again, thank you for joining. Let's see if you're all out there. Lisa, can we have a welcome message? And then if our students can kindly do a thumbs up on that message, just to see if you are there and if you are enjoying yourselves today. Right, do we have the announcement, Lisa?
We've got the announcement.
Yes, there we are. So you will see there's a thumbs up button, and roll those thumbs ups for us. Mouse hover over that button and let's go. Let's see if you're there and if you're still enjoying the session with us. Okay. Now, note making. What is note making for me? And if you can take, say, half a minute and quickly type in there what note making would be for you. What is note making for me? Throw us some of your ideas, some of your thoughts. Okay, summaries. A way for me to capture the information I need to remember. Great. To remember what we're learning. Excellent. Thank you for your kind inputs, your very insightful contributions. You're welcome to still add some. Now, what when we think of notes, one may find, hey, note making, so what? Where do I start? Okay, why make notes? Are they really necessary? And it takes me so long to make them. I don't even get to studying. I can't get them right. I'm actually getting more confused. And very soon I stop making them. It's just an overwhelming task. And how do I make them? I can't make notes on everything. I'm just merely rewriting the study material, and I still don't understand the work. Hey, here's an interesting one. Someone bought notes, very comprehensive notes. Well, let's think of, this is an internet search. You can do it. I adapted it a bit. And you say, now, what is note making? So let's think about this thing called a note. So let's first consider the thing that is a noun. And we say, okay, it's a brief record of points or ideas. You can write them down to organize my thinking and to aid us, to help as a memory aid. So we see there a record or a record, an item, a notation, a reminder, a memory aid, observations, details, synopsis, summary, outline, and also diagrams, maps, electronic notes, even audio notes. Verb, the action, the task that I will be doing. Notice or pay particular attention to something, consider, observe. So when I make notes, I consider, I observe, I take heed, I notice, I pay attention, I take in the information, and then write it down, jot it down, mark it, record it, scribble it, type it, sketch it. You get the idea. Where does one start? Where does one start with note making? Do you take the book, start making notes? Where do you start? Your note making starts with thinking and building up a mental framework. You have to know the outline, the sort of context. And you need to say, okay, I've got this study material. Let me take some stock, because you can't make notes and later on suddenly discover you're still needing something. So do some stock taking. Right at the beginning, you ask yourself, what is it that I should have? What is it that I have already? What is it that each module consists of? And so you start building up an idea of how each module is organized. And if you haven't done that yet, do so with speed. Go and double check in everything so that you don't get halfway into the year and then suddenly discover you need something. Now, the thing with note making is you must be able to you will have to know, okay, so when you look at your note making, you say, okay, let me tell myself or my friend the basic story of this module. And you will say something like this, and you'll be giving some very specific information. In this module, and you give the name, I currently have 3 tutorial letters, including tutorial letter 101. There will be some more coming. There are 2 study guides. The first study guide has got 12 chapters. The second guide has got 9 chapters. There are 21 in total. And then apart from that, there's the prescribed textbook. And there are 17 chapters there that I need to integrate with the others. Oh yes, I've already activated my Unisa online account. I've checked the electronic tutorial material and how that fits in with the printed material. And then I may have to refer to additional material via the library. And I have to submit 4 assignments by these due dates. And I'll be doing an exam on this or that date. So yes, you need to be able to tell the story of what you're busy with. And then you need to expand that basic story and say, okay, in this module, this is how information will be presented. This is how I must present my answers. This is how I will be examined. And this is as if your lecturer is talking to you. But what we find is that students don't pay attention. They just skip over that information. They start studying without a firm understanding of what tutorial letter 101 is actually telling them. So you need to focus in and start studying and start at this point. And you have to ask these questions. You have to ask him, so what is this module about? And then you must be able to answer that question. And you know what? This thing of notes, what we discovered, this student came to us. She said, you know, I've got this big problem. I've been failing this module now. This is the 5th time, number 5 in a row. And I don't know what's wrong because I've already passed 2nd level modules. So we say, okay, bring everything you've got, all your study material, bring your study guides, bring your study letters, your tutorial letters, bring your textbooks, bring feedback on assignments, bring notes. Okay, so she comes and visits us, and she's got no handwritten notes, but she takes out this stack of notes, and it turns out she bought what she calls notes. Hey man, they're so dense, they're so complicated, they're so detailed. And then we discovered, but wait a minute, the numbering of these notes are a bit different from the numbering in the study guide and the tutorial letter. She bought these things. She was trying to memorize them off by heart. Sorry, they were not in line with the course objectives and the course guidelines. So go and check that tutorial letter 101. When we looked at her stuff, within about 15 minutes, we discovered there are clear objectives, there are clear guidelines. She would be looking at principles that she needed to study. They would be giving her case studies. She just needed to identify those principles, and there we had it. Principles given, case studies, identify principles, answer questions, and that was it. And she could have been successful, but it took her 5 years because she was studying notes which were not at all relevant. So when you look at your tutorial note, check those requirements, check those directives, check the dates, check the timetable. What is it that I must be doing? Objectives and outcomes. Where must I put my focus? Which sections of the textbook are relevant? What is the emphasis? And that helps me with planning, doing the assignments, and the examination. So the tutorial letter 101 gives us the way forward in this module or every module. So returning back to our question, note making, why? Note making is thinking. It's not just starting writing everything you see down. You first need to process some of that information, looking at the information, the knowledge, the study material, the assignments, the exam prep. And you have to process that information. You have to ask questions. You have to think, so what does this mean? Where does this fit with that? So what we have is, it's a thinking activity. It's exercising the mind. You need to pay attention. There's some interaction. You have to question. You say, really? Can this be true? Oh, I see what you mean. There must be some interaction with so you can't just read this interaction and then you create notes. So note making is a tool that you use. It's a technique that you can develop. It's a way about studying actively. You get engaged, you wrestle with that material, and note making is in fact studying. It's not something added on. It is studying as such. It is purposeful. Now, what type of formats? Do I just start making the perfect notes right from the start? And no, they're not final, and you can take different types of notes. Perhaps you'll just start looking at what things mean. So you just jot down a few ideas. And then as you go on, you expand these ideas and you start getting more structured notes. So any type and format of notes can be relevant at any time. So at the point you may have some very detailed notes, but you're still making basic notes to figure out things. And these what you can find is that you are taking notes where you're grabbing ideas from the book, and then you're starting to integrate them and making notes. So they run together, making and taking notes. So there we have it, sort of formats. Okay, let me zoom this up a bit. So let's take it and look at them a bit more closely. So as you sit there reading, you make a quickly a few scribbles on paper. You'll throw them away later, but at least you're starting. There's some activity, and then you start questioning. And then perhaps you may underline and highlight. But be careful. Sometimes students underline everything and highlight everything. Wait a bit before you highlight. And then there's making use of symbols, perhaps a circle or a triangle or an arrow. And if you have got electronic text, sometimes students would underline that electronic text or highlight. There are types of notes. You can have those very marginal notes. You can have a list. You can have an outline. You can have key points. There may be a formula or a definition or a comparison table. Yeah, and a diagram, a sketch, a mind map, and a summary. So where you have some loose standing notes, you start integrating them so that you have start figuring out main points, and then going to integration with a diagram or a sketch, moving to a summary and a mind map. Now, let's just think about something. Note making comes up and it presents us with a very interesting question. Now, in the study material, we can find that information is usually presented in a linear sequence. As I discussed it, they will have a point A and a point B followed by point C and D and E. So there's a sort of a sequence in which the information is presented, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and so on. Now, when we make notes, do we strictly have to follow the same sequence, or can we rearrange material into different combinations? So are the notes supposed to be like fixed, static? You don't change anything as they give it to you. That is how they want it. Or can you be more creative? Or can you be flexible? Can you be dynamic in your note making? And yes, the purpose that you have with the notes determines different ways of connecting that information. Right. What struck you in this video? What particularly struck you? Let's get some quick answers there on the quick answer and question box. Just a line or two. What struck you? Is organization, reorganization to achieve well-defined objectives. So there's movement all the time. There's reorganization. There's organization, and not just for that, to achieve specific formations. So there's a systematic linking, relinking, and again to achieve these outcomes. And think of this when you think of your study material. There are outlines, there's hierarchy, there are levels. Headings, subheadings, detail, there are associations or relations and linking. Organization and grouping, summaries and mind maps. Things are expanding and contracting. So more information grouped together into less information. Less information expanded to more information. So some information represents more other information. Right, and we've got our practice. There was that coordination thing. You have to practice this. You don't just get it somewhere right from the beginning. You see how this works. You make your notes. So what we have then in our study material are basic units of information, of organization. Now, in this picture, then perhaps each could be a heading or a section or a theme. And each of these could be a node or cluster of information linking to other clusters of information. There are relationships. They are hanging together, or they are opposite, or they are touching, or they are parallel. There are associations. If I can't see the association straight away, I make it up. There are links, there are hierarchies. There are similarities and differences. So let's look at this picture. What is the same and what is different? Okay, I see lots of blue. So perhaps if this is study material, they would be covering linking or very similar type of work. But I need to be careful because they look very much the same. And then it might be that I can get confused. So I must be very careful when looking at this information. Then this information could be expanding. There could be more information coming in, but then these would be like opposing or still contributing, but of a different nature. So I would have to check that out to see how these fit with these, how they link together. And then this thing could start expanding. And wait, what is this? There are these three that are linked and connected, and these two are linking to those legs, and there's something else floating in. Right, so again, how do yellow and black and blue, what is the relation between them, the relationship and the links? And now things start getting more. And you say, okay, wait. How many of them are here? And you count, I count, is it 9? I count 9. And again, the same idea. Now it starts getting a lot of information. Perhaps not that much. Usually if you have, say, 5 plus or minus 2, or 7 plus or minus 2, so 9, so 4 to 5, 7 in a group would be fine. But then you say, okay, wait a minute. Perhaps if this is study material, let me group, let me make subgroups. Perhaps I can put this one, this one, and that one in one group, and that one as well. And then these red ones, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I have a group of 5 and a group of 4. So when I study, I see how I can put information together. So I'm not just taking this information as it is and start making notes. My notes would be, how can I sort information so that I understand it, and so that I can remember it more easily. And as I say, I even make up links. Lisa had some examples as well. And then things start getting complicated. And I have to sit and stare a bit. And perhaps if it's study material, you get some water, or you just get up for a moment and you take a deep breath and you say, hey man, what's going on here? And you say, okay, wait. Here's a circle. How many are there in this circle? And then there's an outside circle. And there are colors, the green and the yellow, and then there are some reds and whites. And you start thinking, how can I reduce this information, this amount of information? How can I put things together which I think can go together? And then let's look at the next one. Oh, this must have been a doctoral thesis, perhaps a master's dissertation, but probably a doctoral thesis. And you just stare at this thing at the beginning and you say, well, perhaps this is what your study material looks like for you when you open those study guides for the first time. And you say, okay, where do I start? What do I study? How do I go about this? And you just look at this mass of information. You say, okay, not that bad. Let me just relax. Let me see. There's a central circle. I see a lot of whites and blues. But wait a minute. These circles, they are connected. These guys are holding the legs of those guides. And then again, these are connecting to those legs. And there are these sort of patterns that are developing. And I start seeing this thing and I can start saying, okay, what is the story of this thing? There are so many of these units of information. They link in this way, but this is how they appear in the study material. But when I look at them, I can start finding patterns and organize them. And now I can start making my notes, and I can make my notes in order to explore, in order to organize, reorganize, And then when I come across something, I make a quick scribble and so on. And then when I've got all this information, I can start reducing it again. And you say, okay. And you say, okay. And you say, okay. So the idea is that when you have a lot of information, you can start getting those summaries where each of these points will represent more and more information, of which you need to get that overall picture or that overall view so that you can understand where you are moving to, and so that you can understand if you if you want to remember this, these are the sorts of patterns or structures or frameworks or outlines that you need to recognize and need to practice. So this brings us then to structure and outline. Study material information is structured information. There is structure. Those guys aren't just floating at random in the, through the air. There's a structure that they move towards you. So in your study material, perhaps the module's name is the central main topic, and then you get your outline of contents. Wow, is that now a bit of useless information that we can skip over, that outline of contents? We don't even recognize it. We don't even realize it's there. Wait a minute. That outline of contents is your very shortest summary of your module. You can see the structure there. You can start thinking about how you can reorganize those chapters, those headings, and you can start seeing there's a hierarchy, or perhaps if there isn't a hierarchy, things appear next to each other. And wait, there's a numbering system. Oh, don't we disregard the numbering? It's just too much. It's just too confusing. No, figure out that numbering system. It ties up with the hierarchy. It ties up with how many nodes you've got in your information network. So look for your sections, your themes, your chapters, your units. So when you tell the story, you must be able to tell the story. In this module, there are so many, of which the name is this. There in this outline of contents, I see these so many points, and they link in this or that way, but I will relink and restructure them for my purpose. And that's where you start shifting around those headings, subheadings, and you also take a note of other features of the text, like the introductions, the summaries. Very important, the questions, the bold, the italics, all those indications. Now let's say here is now a topic on note making, and what you notice, there's a 1 and a 2 and a 3, and then there's a 1.1 and so on. So let's get a clearer picture. So what you have at the first level is you have got your main topic, your second and your third main topics. So what is note making all about? Now you start reading and skipping, reading, skipping, jumping, reading. So, okay, note making is about 1, 2, 3, first, second, and main topic. Then you say, okay, let me ask, what is number 1 about? Oh, number 1 has got a subtopic and another subtopic. So now you're telling the story of this module. You say, okay, this module, it's got 3 or 7 or 9 main topics, main headings or chapters or whatever. And number 1, what is that all about? Oh, number 1 is about subtopic 1 and subtopic 2 and perhaps 3 and 4 and so on. And then you do the same for the second main topic and the third main topic. And then you pass through another round. And you say, okay, now let's take this first main topic. So remember, this all is thinking. There we said note making is thinking. And now you say, how will I be noting this in my brain, in my mind rather? And you say, okay, well, look, subtopic 1 has got a sub and a sub 1.1 and 1 and 1.1.2. And so what you do is first you just read per level. Note making is about 1, 2, 3. You now ignore that information. Then you say, okay, 1 has got 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, and 2, and that one. And now you start zoning in on a specific one, and you break that one down so that you have the structure and the outline of this whole thing. So note making, You need to build towards a coherent goal, beginning and an end and an introduction. And you need to check what are the outcomes and the objectives. What is the outline? What is the plan, the structure? And you've got levels of points and connections and associations. There are lines of argument, which can be single, multiple, parallel, contrasting, whatever. There may be some hierarchy or some comparison. So there's a logical build-up. You take the information apart, you analyze it, and then you put it back together again, and you use that information now to answer your assignment questions, to answer your exam questions. But now, when you look at your text, what are the emphases? What's the important things? You know, let's look here. My understanding, given structure, given reasoning and logic, my linking of concepts and grouping them, my reorganization, regrouping, my combining, reducing, my combining and reducing, and then expanding. Wait a bit. Let's put some feeling into this, some emphasis. My understanding, the given structure is. This is the reasoning that's going on. My linking of concepts and grouping them. Then I reorganize and regroup them. How do I combine and reduce the number of items? How do I combine and reduce the number of groups? And then when I've reduced them, how do I expand them? So look for emphasis. Make sure that you follow the meaning of the text. Put in your own emphasis. Something else. Numbering. So here we have, starting off our discussion, we firstly need to establish what's important leading on to this, another matter, and additionally, and further, and consequently, and finally. Wait. This is numbering. Starting off with our discussion, we firstly need to, and then leading on to this, and another matter, additionally, further, consequently, finally. So here we have it. Firstly, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, 5, 6, 7. So you can say this section is dealing with these 7 points. So be aware of that. And then also be aware of changes in the direction of argument. You can have something like, on the other hand, in comparison to, however, contrasting, despite, but. So be careful when you make notes. You must be aware of these changes in argument and how you will be incorporating them. So what we have in note making, and we had that with those clusters, we must also be grouping information. Now let's say this may be an outline of content, or it may be a section of the work. So what is it that we've got here? Title of an interesting and very entertaining topic. And let's see, 1, introduction, 2, topic as related. Hey, what's going on? I have to sit and stare at this thing for a few moments. How others are affected, how it relates to our times. This totally doesn't make any sense to me yet. The matters that are important, why planning is important, our environment, setting up conditions through the ages, definitions, practicing. Conclusion. No, I have to look at this again. So perhaps let's see. Oh, there's an introduction and there's a conclusion. Already we are start making groups. Topic as related to ourselves, as how others are affected. Well, that's sort of like a relation as well. There's a topic relation to ourselves. There's a topic in relation to others, how it affects them, how it relates to our times. What is our times? Is it like current? Is it like current culture? Is it like what's happening? Perhaps that's a relation as well, because they use the word relates. So we have relation to ourselves, others, our times. Is there a history element here? Important, planning, important. Okay, perhaps those two things are on important. Setting up our environment and conditions. Well, that's sort of like environment to me as well. And then this thing through the ages, well, that's history. Guidelines. So how can I start taking these 12 things, rearrange them, associate them, link them, relink them if I must, so that I can get an outline which I will remember. So let's start here with the relation thing. Relating to ourselves and others and our time. So there's a cluster of information. Right, let's take the next one. Importance. Okay, matters. They talk about matters. Now your questioning clicks in. What matters? How many are there? What do they address? So while you are reading this, you are questioning, you are interrogating, you are saying, how do I make sense of this? And if it must, you have a quick look in the study material to see what are these matters. And one of them would then be planning. Perhaps I can get a better organization here. So they're setting up the environment, the conditions, and the practice. I just throw them together because they give me this feeling of things that need to go together. And they're all effective. Practicing effective conditions, effective for the environment to be effective or ideal. And then there's the introduction, which I throw together with the conclusion. And yes, definitions. Where is definitions? Definitions, aren't that something that needs to be with the introduction? And then history. Let me throw history in there as well. And how you do it is your way, because it's your way how you will remember it better. And you start getting those groups. So there we have it. There's relating or relations, there's importance, there's settings, and then there's introduction, conclusion with definition and history, which I just put there to remember. And that outline is actually a mind map in disguise. An outline and a mind map are basically the same thing. Table of contents. It's just we arrange the information differently. So there we have our topic, which is that thing about the note making. And here we see relational, importance, setting up. There's an intro and conclusion. There's a definition and the history. And then each of these relational, self, others, times, and importance, plan and matters, and setting up practice, conditions, and environment. So that is how you would develop a mind map. And then this thing, you're not developing this for the sake of a nice looking mind map. You are developing this to assist you in your understanding and in your remembering, your memorizing, remembering, recalling, and answering. And when you answer, you will look at that question to see, must I now just give this information like that or as is? Or perhaps the question says, I must start here and compare it to that, or start here and compare it to that, or bring this into connection with each other. So you arrange, rearrange, and then you start doing what they tell you to do when they say answer in your own words. So you don't just slavishly follow what they're giving you. You answer in your own words where you put your combination. Of course, you'll use the technical academic vocabulary, but you'll shift that information around. So let's have a look at some examples that I got off the internet with a search for mind maps free, and you get all sorts of stuff. And I selected here, I think, quite useful ones. Right, note making. Yes, fun. Now, in terms of today's workshops, I have a request. Lisa will be telling you to please respond to a questionnaire, which I trust you will very well do. But I want to ask you also, send us an email from your Unisa My Life email account, not from your Google or from your Gmail or your Yahoo or whatever, from your Unisa account, and type us some 2 or 3 or more useful points that you've gathered from our workshops. And if I get that message and I've got a few emails that have come in, we can send you the link of that video that you watched. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Arnold. I think that was quite a detailed presentation about note making. And I hope that students who are attending this session can really see the value of making notes in terms of just integrating all the information that you need to manage. For example, there was one question that came through about, connecting the tutorial letters and the study guides, and that will even take it further, connecting all the information that you are gathering in terms of your studies, even discussions that you're having with other students, with your lecturers, with your e-tutors, additional material that you're finding online, maybe videos that you're watching to further help you to understand more challenging concepts. So note making would definitely be the way that you use in order to integrate all this information, to make sense of everything that you need to study, and to really internalize your learning. Because in the end, it's not just about passing the assessments, even though that's very important. It's also you are studying this qualification in order to become a practitioner in your field. So are you really integrating and even interrogating the learning that is taking place? So thank you, Arnold, for that.
Yeah, and of course the lecturer will be pointing you. The lecturer will be saying, study this together with that. This refers to that. So there will be links, how to integrate and so on.
Yeah. So on the screen, I've got our email address as well as our website. So I will really encourage everyone here, if you need to discuss any needs that you may have in terms of further support. And just in general, it's not just about the study method and the note making that we discussed this morning, but just general support in terms of managing your studies, managing your career development, as well as managing your psychosocial development. On our website, we've got many resources available related to the topic we talked about this morning, but also further resources to help you with your career development, your learning skills, as well as your personal development. Arnold, is there any kind of last words that you would like to share?
Well, I trust your note making will be fun, that you will be getting into it and that you will be practicing it. And I'm really awaiting your email with feedback on what you found useful, one or two or a few points. And then on return, once I've got a few responses, I will send you that link with the video.
Thank you, Arnold. So the email address that you can use is the counselling@unisa.ac.za address. As I said or announced at the beginning, we will be posting this presentation on our YouTube channel, and we will also be emailing a link for you if you would complete a feedback questionnaire for us. We will really appreciate it. Because it helps us to include, even more of these sessions and information that we may have missed out on this morning.
Lisa, if I can say, that YouTube, share with your friends, tell the other students who want to see some the views on our workshops going sky high.
From my side, I would really want to appreciate you taking the time to attend this morning. We appreciate your contributions, how you participated in the discussions, and I hope that you have found it useful, even if you're just left with the thought that note making is very important and that we are here to have further conversations with you in terms of supporting you for your study journey. Thank you very much. We will be having another session next week, Wednesday. Our colleague, Dr. Amy Reddy, will be joining us, and she will be sharing with you some information about stress management and how we can manage stress so that it does not impact negatively on our studies. Thank you very much and have a good day further.